Looking for a great program to help your kids learn Spanish? The Calico Spanish program is the program for you. So this is a review for the Calico Spanish program for your kids, and I can tell you that as a homeschool mom of the last 7 years, we have really struggled with trying to find a good Spanish curriculum that is both exciting and it keeps the kids interested, but it also works in terms of getting them to actually start using the language and incorporating it into just their daily life and being excited about doing it. So this has just been a super blessing to have this program kind of fall into our lives. We were so excited to find it a couple months back, probably about 4 months back now, we've been using it. And they do have a free trial. I'm going to go through a little bit on the website, and then I want to show you some of the resources for it. And then you can see whether or not it's a good option for your family. I know that with Spanish programs or any foreign language in general, the price tag can be so high, and it can be so frustrating when you spend a lot of money on something and you're not sure really if your kids are going to work with it and if it's going to be a good option. And it tends to be one of the most expensive things that you can get in terms of curriculum. So let's go through this, and I'll show you why the price point on this really is very reasonable and really works for all levels. So the first thing to kind of mention, when you go to calicospanish.com, so that's their website, you can see that you can try it for free. And this isn't one of those things like where you get it for a week and then they start billing your credit card. This is the kind of thing where you can try it for a week. You don't need a credit card. At the end of that week, you're just not going to have access anymore. But I can tell you within that first week, we were hooked and the kids loved it. And we bought into a full year-long program because I was so absolutely convinced that this is the program for us. So you can try it for free. Just be sure that you're going to do that free trial when you have like 3 or 4 days that week to really dedicate to doing some of the Spanish lessons. And that way you can see if your kids like it or not. The program's probably geared towards early elementary. Like you could probably do later elementary. So probably anything from, pre-K, kindergarten, all the way up to maybe 5th or 6th grade. Maybe your 5th and 6th graders might feel like it's a little kiddish for them, but they still will learn a ton. So if they don't mind that, I think it'll work. And if you have a large homeschool family, you can easily do this with your kids that are, 5th and 6th grade. And then your little ones who are even pre-readers can just be sitting in and listening to the songs and stuff. So it definitely can incorporate a lot of different age levels. I'm going to get logged in here. Okay, so I am logged in now. A couple things to note. There are 4 different levels to the program, and then within each level, there's multiple units. I think it's about 10 units in each level. And so we've been doing this, like I said, I think about 3 or 4 months, and we are still in level A. So there's a ton of material. It lasts quite a while. We do our Spanish usually 3 days a week, and that's just because the other 2 days we do Latin, and I usually don't make the kids do Latin and Spanish in the same day. But if you were doing this 5 days a week, so all of your school days, you'll get through it a little bit quicker, but there's still a ton of material and you go through a lot of stuff. So it will last quite a while. And that's why I think it's worth at least doing a year-long program on it, doing the year-long membership, also because the deal is so great. But we'll go through a little bit more on the pricing in a bit. So as you go through, so level A is the first level, and we are still at level A. Okay, so level A. So a few things. This program is robust enough that this could be a program for like an elementary school or, a preschool. A Spanish teacher could actually use this and all of the resources and use it for teaching dozens of students. But it's also fine if you're just a homeschool parent and you're doing this for your family. It's fine at that level too. You will have probably more resources and stuff than you need, but it's always better to have more than not have enough, right? So there's an introduction that will tell you about it, and there's always a unit guide for, the teacher or you on what you're going through for the different days. There's a lesson checklist where you can check off that you've done it. You can put any notes on here. And then there's a student progress check form. So it kind of gives them things like, okay, by the end of this day or this unit, you're going to know how to say hello and goodbye and things like that. So the kids can actually track their own progress, and that's kind of exciting for them. So there's these different resources. You can download them if you want. You can just view it and decide if you want to download it or not, or print it out. It's up to you. And then within a unit, let me just go to the first unit for the first level and show you what that's like. Again, it will take us about 3 weeks to go through a unit, 3 or 4 weeks. And that's just because of the timing on doing Spanish lessons just 3 times a week. So you can see here you have the different days. So day 1, day 2, day 3, they have it very nicely organized. I think there's usually 10 days, and then there's a cultural capsule, and I'll explain that more in a minute. But this is what a day looks like. So it gives you a heads up, if you haven't looked at your materials, review that first. It tells you everything that you're going to do for the day with your kids or with the class, whatever the case is. You can view the unit guide or download it. That's usually multiple pages, and it'll go through what you're doing for all of the days of the unit. I did that the first time, and then I found I wasn't necessarily needing that, because every day you get this little overview of what you're going to do, and it has all the resources for you for that day. So I found I don't really need to print that out. But if you like being overly prepared and you want to just have all that information, then you can print that out. They have it here for you. And then usually there's a little explanation, an introduction of what you're going to do for the day, and so you can let the kids know. And by the way, you do not need to know Spanish to do this. You will learn this along with your kids if you don't have a Spanish background. And I had some Spanish in high school and college, so I've pretty much known all of the vocabulary that we've been doing so far, because it's still pretty early on. But I am by no means fluent, and you don't need to be fluent. You could even just be learning everything right at the get-go, just like your kids. So don't worry about it if you don't have a Spanish background. So here's an idea of, it's showing you a flashcard. So like hola, it's a first flashcard. You always have a picture. And then if you click to go see what the back says, it tells you that it says hello. Now, what's really nice is you have a little button down here that can show you things in English on it. And down here, you can see there's a few options. So you can view the flashcards, you can download a sheet with the flashcards, and then you can buy the flashcards. So let me show that. If you just want to keep this on the computer and you don't want any paper resources, you don't even need to print them out or do anything. You can just rely on the computer and looking at this on the computer. Now, my kids actually like to have the printed out flashcards. They like to be able to hold them up at different times and use them and look at them and review them. So I did print off the flashcards, and what happens is you end up getting, I think there's like 6 of these to a page that print out on an 8.5 by 11, and then you can cut it out, you can just fold it in half, and then if you laminate it, you end up with a little laminated flashcard like this. And this works totally fine, and it's great. And I did this for a long time, and then decided, the resources are kind of nice. You can just buy these from the company. And so for all of the different levels, you can buy the resources just for that level. You don't have to pre-buy all the levels worth of stuff. You could pre-buy everything if you wanted, but if you weren't sure you were going to continue or how long you were going to do it, you can just buy the resources that you need for the one level. And their flashcards are larger, and they're this really nice kind of like laminated glossy material. So these are really heavy duty. They probably could even tolerate a little bit of water spilled on them and stuff. So they have their flashcards, and it's kind of nice to have the flashcards. So that's an example of the resources, but again, they don't require you to have to buy their stuff. So you can, once you have your online access, which at a minimum, I think it's like $16 a month if you just want to pay for the monthly price, and that's the homeschooling discount. So if you just paid for the monthly price, you can still have access to all these printables, and then you just have to print them out yourself if you don't want to buy the resource. So they really make it available for all price points. The next thing that we really love in this program is the music. The music is phenomenal, and they have these really catchy tunes, and the kids don't need to know what all the words are yet, but they eventually memorize these songs, and then they start kind of piecing together the different words that they've learned, and then they'll ask, what are the things? What does that mean? And you can get the version of the song lyrics in that unit guide that you have. It tells you what all the lyrics were, and it gives you the translation for everything. So again, you don't need to know be fluent in Spanish or even need to know any Spanish in order to do this. Let me show you an example what some of the music sounds like on this.
Hola a todos. Hola a todos, buenos días, buenos días, buenos días. Hola a todos, buenos días, buenos días, buenos días. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Yo estoy muy bien. Vamos a empezar la clase de español. Alegres vamos a estar porque nos gusta mucho cantar.
So you get an idea there of the songs. And what's really nice is that the music is available on Spotify. So you can build a Spotify playlist, or we pay for Apple Music. So I have an Apple Music playlist that has the music from here. So when we're in the car and stuff, we can just be listening to the music and get some additional practice. And trust me, the kids pick up a ton by singing this and listening to it. The next thing that they have a lot of are these video stories. And so they'll have, a cuento, a story, and it will go through. And sometimes you might have a larger story, like this is 3 minutes, so this is a little bit longer. And then sometimes they cut out a piece of that story. So if there's a certain dialogue area where they're talking about a phrase you've learned for the day or one of the vocabulary words, then you'll get an extra video where you're repeating that portion of it. And maybe you're playing along with your characters or a stuffed animal or something else. So let me just show you a little bit of what these stories look like.
Lección 1.
Oh, and they'll go through vocabulary.
Hola. Buenos días. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo. ¿Y tú? Mucho gusto. Adiós. Azul.
And this vocab will be throughout the week or throughout the unit.
Sí.
You're getting the same vocabulary.
No.
And trust me, the kids learn this vocabulary.
Cuento. Pedro el pez. Este es Pedro. Hola, Pedro. Pedro es un pez. Pedro es un pez azul. Hola, Pedro el pez azul. Pedro tiene pelo amarillo. Pedro no tiene pelo azul. Pedro no tiene pelo rojo. Pedro tiene pelo amarillo.
So you can see, like, my kids have their little Pedro, and my one daughter's even put some pelo rojo on here just to be funny, because Pedro does not have pelo rojo. So these little stories are just great. They're entertaining, the kids like them, and there's a lot of repetition. So you don't get this same story every single day, but you'll see this same story maybe in 3 days from now or something like that. So you get just enough repetition that they're hearing the same words again, but they're not getting bored where they're seeing the same thing over and over. They do a great job of making each day its own individual thing that's different and unique. You're going to go through more of the vocabulary, so I can tell by the little dots here that this goes through all that vocabulary they just showed us. So they had like hola, buenos dias, como te llamas, all the stuff in there, and you go through it again. And of course you can do that by also looking at your flashcards or having them hold up the flashcards and get used to using those flashcards. And then an activity. A lot of times there's some sort of activity where they're maybe doing something with a stuffed animal, or maybe you're playing I Spy, or you're just doing something where you're looking for different colors or shapes or whatever the case is on what you're learning about. So there's something that is gets the kids up and moving, or something that they're tactilely touching and learning in a different way. So it's not just sitting here watching flashcards, listening to songs, but you're really getting that education in all the different senses. So you're utilizing everything. So video story again, but this time they're going to try to shout out hola and adios when they hear the words in it. So they're interacting with that story. There's a game. There's not always games every day, but this one has a particular game and it has some matching. So sometimes there's games. This one has a printout, which are these finger puppets. So you can download and you can print out either in color, or my kids, we did it in black and white, and then they colored in their puppets on their own. And so they have their little puppets, and then they're using these throughout some of the days where we're talking about Pedro, and they're holding up their own little Pedro. And then they can practice speaking, adios, hola. And this is the end of one day. So this is what it looks like for one day. My kids have learned so much in terms of their vocab and actually when to use it and how to use it properly, and they like being able to use it. The thing about the cultural capsule I wanted to mention, at the end of each unit, they do something where they're teaching you about the area. So like in this case, it's an idea of, are you my friend? And so it goes through the different forms of you. So you can have tú, or ustedes, or vosotros. So, and it shows you where are the various places around the world where they're using those forms of you, because somebody could say you in Spain, but they say it differently in, South America. So they'll go through that and do that time, or that cultural capsule, they call it. And then there's usually like a little handout or something that lets them kind of incorporate that learning. So that's an example of one unit. One of the nice things on the website too is this resources tab, and you can quickly get to any of the videos, the music videos, the dialogue where they're talking back and forth, the characters, songs and stories, the storybook videos. So that one didn't have a full storybook, but as they get further along, they end up with these large storybooks. This one, because I have the resources, these are the full printed ones, and these are kind of nice because what I like about having it printed, and they show you in there, they have it, and then you flip the page, it's digitally, and you can see it on there. But what's nice about them having this in hand is my kids can actually take this and sit down with grandma and grandpa and read this off. Now, they're still fairly early readers, but because they know this story so well, and they know, this is Pedro, and he's a bluefish, el pez azul. They've heard that so many times, they can recognize this, and they can, read it. So your younger readers may not read it, but they'll recognize the pictures, and they might like having the book to hold in their hands. But your kids that are, at the point of reading, they might actually be able to start reading some of this book on their own, just because they've seen it so many times and they get to know the stories. So that's what makes it nice to have the actual printed resources on that. The flashcards, you can always come here to print out. The activity sheets, so different days might have an activity sheet where they're filling in something. There's different games and other teacher materials, and then posters. Oh, the posters. So we didn't have a poster in that particular lesson, but this is an example of the posters. So this is one where I just printed it out. So they have the link to it. It just prints on a regular 8.5 by 11 paper. They print best in color, so you definitely want to print them in color. You can print your own, or if you buy the resources, you get the posters that are included, and they're twice the size. So each side of this is 8.5 by 11. And so what that means is it's a really large poster, and this one's nice to hang up on the wall in your schoolroom or wherever you're at. Now, if you don't want to buy the resource, you're fine using this one, because usually in a household, this is fine, and it covers enough. It's large enough to use there. So that is the posters. So the other thing to show, let's go back to the home, is the pricing. And like I said, you can do the week for free, which is great. And then be sure you go to homeschool pricing if you are a homeschooler, because You don't want to pay there's a discount if you're homeschoolers, so you don't want to pay the pricing for like a school that might be using this. And so after our week trial, I don't even think we finished our whole week, and I was committed and I was set with it. And so I did the yearly pricing because for $89, you get the whole family. So it doesn't matter how many kids you have. You're not paying for each individual kid. You just print out more worksheets and stuff as you need those. So that's just the per family rate. The normal monthly, if you think you just want to give it a longer trial and do the month to month, it's $16. But there was a pretty big cost savings to do the full year. So I went ahead and did the full year. You can also do a quarterly. So if you're more comfortable with doing that every 3 months, you can do quarterly. So they give you a few different options, and that's really nice. But with that, you get that full digital access. You can print out any of the resources you want, and they give you a link to print out all the resources that you need. You don't need to buy any of the other resources if you don't want to. You could also buy the resources if you don't want to have to print out anything and deal with printing it out. Maybe you're going to be traveling and you won't always have digital access, then it's probably worthwhile to print the resources. Or you just have kids that like being able to, hold stuff in their own hands and be able to use it. I think that still, given the pricing of, $90 for the full year's worth and then being able to print out the resources, that's still comparable to what we've usually paid for other Spanish programs in the past that haven't even worked for us. And this one is working really well. So wanted to share that with you in case you were looking for a great Spanish program and you have not really been happy or been able to find anything that has been a good fit. Try it, do the trial, see how it goes. But I think that as long as you have kids that like to sing and engage and just have fun with it, then I think that your kids are going to like this. So I hope this was useful for you. We're doing a whole summer series of different curriculum that we've liked throughout the years for our kids, and hopefully it can give you some great ideas. Thanks for watching.